I divorced my wife because she wanted to name our baby after her ex, not me. She clung to her ex's surname, even wanted our daughter's first name as a version of his. We fought. She refused any compromise, and in the end, I registered the baby's name myself while she was detained. My wife, Julia, 43F, and I'm Thomas, 41, have had a long, complicated road to parenthood. Years back, I had an accident that left me with fertility problems, so getting pregnant was a challenge. After 3 emotional years, we finally welcomed our baby girl 3 weeks ago. Both Julia and the baby are doing well, but our home life has turned upside down. I've been sleeping on the couch since we're locked in a battle over our daughter's surname. Here's some background. Julia was in a serious long-term relationship before she met me. Her ex, Brendan, tragically took his own life after struggling with mental health issues post-military service. Julia and Brendan had a son together, Owen, who is almost 12 and lives with us. Owen has Brendan's last name, which Julia still uses herself, even after marrying me. Now, Julia insisted that our newborn daughter should also have Brendan's surname. She argued it would make Owen feel more included with his new sibling, and because, in her opinion, Brendan's surname was simply better than mine. I tried to compromise. Since I have basically raised Owen as my own son, maybe he could take my last name. Julia shot it down, saying Owen has had his father's name since birth, and it's not reasonable to change it for my sake. I explained it was natural for Owen and our daughter to have different surnames, because they have different fathers. Then I proposed that her maiden name could be hyphenated with mine for our daughter, and she could hyphenate her maiden name with Brendan's for Owen, so the siblings would almost share a surname. Shot down again. We were on a deadline because the baby's name had to be registered by Thursday. As a last-ditch effort, I suggested we attend couples therapy and in the meantime just register our baby under my surname, which was met with a flat-out refusal. Julia said carrying and delivering our daughter earned her the right to decide her name alone. In desperation, I even asked Owen how he felt. He shrugged, telling me it didn't matter to him if he and his sister didn't share a name. He knows Brendan is his biological father, and I'm the dad who's actually here. When I relayed this to Julia, she accused me of emotionally manipulating Owen. After all this, we had a nasty argument and barely spoke for 5 days. It ripped me apart because this should have been the happiest time of our lives. Finally, I told Julia that the baby would have my surname or we'd get divorced. I was desperate. Her stubbornness felt like a refusal to recognize me as a real father. I even spat out that maybe her dead husband could step in and help, since she obviously didn't want to acknowledge me. She called me manipulative and insisted it was unfair I got a say in either the baby's first or last name. For the record, her first name proposals were all feminine twistings of Brendan's name, like Brianna for Brendan. If we'd had a boy, she wanted to outright use Brendan's name. Today, I called a solicitor about my rights, and Julia overheard. She accused me of boxing her into a corner about the name, even after I relented on her suggestion for the first name, as long as it wasn't a feminine version of Brendan's. My pick ended up as the middle name. At this point, I didn't know if I was right anymore, or just making things worse out of pride. To clarify a bit more, Julia has spent most of her life with her maiden name. After Brendan died, she kept using his surname, but never made it official until about 6 years ago. At the same time, she added Brendan's full name to Owen's legal documents when he turned 7, and changed her name as well. At the time, we'd been dating exclusively for a while. I didn't love it, but she said it was for Owen, and I tried to understand, which she admits now that she just prefers how Brendan's surname sounds. Early in our relationship, she'd bring up Brendan a lot, especially the circumstances of his suicide, which I understood for a while. Eventually, she toned it down. Still, when we discussed marriage, she said she wasn't taking my last name, which was too plain. I let it go for the sake of peace. There were other rifts. For instance, she wouldn't let me adopt Owen, but I relented to keep the family together. While trying for the baby, our relationship was more roommate than romantic, but we stuck it out and were thrilled last year when we learned Julia was finally pregnant, and with a girl. The first and middle name conversations were tense, but not nearly as explosive as the surname war. Update. After reading all your advice, I called the registration office. Because Julia and I were married, They told me only one parent needed to be present to register the baby's name. I thought I could appeal to her sense of fairness by gathering everyone, her parents, my parents, and both family siblings for a big discussion. Her sister, Sadie, came along to help mediate. My parents and my siblings, in the group chat, sided with me on either my surname or Julia's maiden name. But Julia's family, her parents, Sadie, and the siblings were unanimous. The baby should have Brendan's surname because Julia carried and delivered her. I was shocked when even Brendan's parents agreed with that. As if that wasn't enough, I found out, by accident during the conversation, that the first name I agreed to, Julia's suggestion, not a female version of Brendan's, was actually the name Brendan had once chosen if he'd had a daughter with Julia. Julia blushed, caught off guard when that got exposed. Afterwards, I asked if it would be fair to name our daughter after one of my exes. Julia bluntly replied that my 3 previous girlfriends all had ugly first names, so it didn't matter anyway. Once everyone left, I tried to reason with her one more time. She slammed and locked the bedroom door in my face. During that mediation, I asked Brendan's parents if they'd let me name Owen after me and legally adopt him. They told me they'd never allow adoption or a name change. Then I asked if it was fair for my daughter to have their son's surname. They brushed me off, pointing out that Owen was closer to his sister than I'd ever be as her father, and that both should share the surname. Then they mocked my choices for first, middle, and last names for our daughter. Up until this, I had a decent relationship with them. I helped raise Owen, but that felt like a slap. The next morning, Julia ignored me, barricading herself in the bedroom. I left her breakfast by the door, hoping she'd be rational before the registration deadline arrived. Now her friends started calling. Why, in 2023, was I so insistent about my surname? I explained my side, how my daughter should know who her father is, but they insisted I was being unreasonable. On the Tuesday before the registration appointment, Julia picked another fight. She doubled down. The baby would get an explicitly feminine version of Brendan's name, or nothing. Then she screamed she'd rather kill herself than have our daughter bear my name. To be honest, I'm ashamed to admit this. At that moment, I actually called the police, stating she'd threatened suicide. I painted it as a postpartum mental health emergency and told them I feared for our baby's safety. They took Julia, despite her protests that she was just upset and didn't mean it. I admit I pushed the police a bit, and I regret that, but at that point I was lost. While Julia was detained, I went to the registry office and registered our daughter's full name. First, middle, last, all my choices. I did this without Julia's consent. I was terrified of what else she might do if I didn't act. Julia still hadn't been discharged when this was done. I know she has deeper issues, and I genuinely hope she gets help. Yet it was clear her priorities weren't where I needed them to be. Things got even messier. While she was away, Julia asked Brendan's parents via Sadie to come collect Owen and our daughter to take care of them until she was released. Her parents and Brendan's parents showed up. Her family tried to pressure me into giving up the baby for her own good. Brendan's parents threatened to call the police when I refused. I told them to go ahead. Ultimately, they left with Owen. During this chaos, Julia's parents visited and asked to take my daughter to Julia's place to make things easier. Again, I refused. Afterwards, the health visitor and midwife came by for checks. When Julia finally came home after her release, she went to her parents' house instead. She's been living there ever since. She has tried twice to come and take our daughter, but I changed the locks. She does drop off expressed milk through her sister, and I accept it. I've retained legal counsel for the divorce. Social services are getting involved due to concerns about Julia's mental state, and everyone, from the health visitor to my solicitor, thinks, for now, the safest place for my daughter is with me. As for my marriage, it's finished. Frankly, I'm not sure if Julia ever truly loved me. There's been too much revealed that I didn't want to see. Through it all, I know I'll always love Owen, and I hope one day, when he's old enough, he'll look me up. But as my solicitor cautioned, I shouldn't get my hopes up. My older brother Greg and his wife Serena have moved in to help me manage the newborn chaos. Their teenagers help a lot, and Greg and Serena's experience raising 5 kids to adolescence is invaluable. So, that's where things stand. That brings this story to a close. This story raises tough questions about grief, parenthood, and identity. The clash over the child's name seemed to expose wounds that were never fully healed on both sides. I've got a question for you. What do you think? Should naming a child after a lost loved one ever take precedence over a living parent's wishes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.